Hello, this is Calvin Idle. Welcome to the Lavender Table, a web-based talk show for and about the LGBT community. And now, let's keep the conversation going with your host, Gary Elgin.
Jenny, thank you so much for sitting down with us here on the Lavender Table.
My pleasure.
I want to talk about your book. Tell us what prompted you to write Ice and Go.
Well, to be honest with you, it was a friend. I had been passionate about a lot of the material in the book and speaking on a national level about many of the subjects. And finally she said, you've got a book in you and you need to write this down. So we kind of put our heads together and it came to fruition.
I could go chapter by chapter and talk to you forever about everything in the book, but in chapter 10 you talk about something that's very important. Mm-hmm. It's the game changer when it comes to women's sports. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Well, that chapter is entitled Breaking News, and it refers to Mel Greenberg, a reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, who was the first person to start the women's basketball poll, which kind of then set the competition level of women's basketball and brought women's sports to the forefront. Another venue has always been the Olympics. The Olympics gives a big spurt to women's athletics in different sports and gets children excited about participating in athletics. And of course Title IX was the platform that opened the doors for the opportunity for women to participate in sports. Now, we're not there yet. If you notice on ESPN, on SportsCenter, women's sports gets little to none as far as even the top 25 poll or big games of the week, etc., in mention until it gets to about the postseason.
The Olympics have a big effect on women's sports and women athletes, mm-hmm. and the general public's acceptance of women's sports. Mm-hmm. But everywhere throughout the year after that, what happens?
Well, I think what happens is there's only so much time in the day, so the media thinks, that they have to portray or to highlight or to broadcast sports. And sports is becoming, from the cable network, an industry in and of itself. You have a channel completely devoted to golf, to tennis, to NASCAR racing, to fishing, and outdoor activities. So they're finding more and more of an industry in the recreation and sports world, and it's time to find that for women's sports as well. You look at the drive and the number of girls and women playing sports today, so it's there. It's just a matter of whether the industry feels that it's lucrative, because it is all about the money.
It is. It's sponsors. It's the money coming into the station or the
viewership. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the viewership is probably there. It's just whether they want to put the effort into putting together a product people want to see.
So Mel's article really broke open the doors.
Yeah, that poll really gave the competitive edge and interest to people, so that they said, hey, we need to look at some of these schools that are very competitive and the rankings and how that can develop and grow into a competition level. And then the NCAA got involved and said, okay, we're going to take over the NAIA sports and look at how we can incorporate that. And I think that has had its pluses and minuses. It had its pluses because it put it to a national stage, but it also had its minuses because then we were again having to follow what men's athletics was doing.
True. Not appropriate, really.
Well, we're different. It's a different market, it's a different showcase, it's a different product. And I think we need to keep those differences alive if you're going to be able to develop and grow those.
When did the spotlight then turn toward the University of Tennessee, Knoxville?
Well, the University of Tennessee Knoxville has a lot of history in women's athletics. I mean, it dates back to the early 1900s. There's a book out there called The Footsteps of Champions, if anybody's interested, and it really highlights the historical perspective of women's athletics at UT. That's actually written by Debbie Shriver. So women's athletics has always been here, but when Pat Summit arrived, and a famous quote of hers is you can't take donkeys to the Kentucky Derby. So when she started to get the racehorses in here and really started to win and form that winning tradition, that's when it really started to explode. And being the winningest coach in basketball, men's or women's, has really set the foundation for women's athletics to thrive. The Lady Vol logo is recognized nationwide.
Yes, yes. Now, women's golf also had quite a shining light here at the University of Tennessee, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Women's golf, and women's golf had a shining light in its history, and then it faded away and then came back again. And a lot of the sports ended up doing that. Track and field has a great reputation here with several national championships. Our volleyball program has been very strong, making the Final Four. Our swimming program is very, very strong. So, and obviously softball, as of late, has really taken off. So I think you've got an environment here where the female athlete can thrive, and that's a key component.
We're going to jump around a little bit because in the chapter just previous to this, you talk about homophobia in sports, a subject that not a lot of people want to talk about.
Right.
And the mainstream media, they get caught up in numbers and names. They want names named and they want percentages noted. Do we really need to go there? Is that going to deflect what's really important?
Well, I'm hoping that one day the issue of homophobia becomes a non-issue. I mean, really, who someone chooses to love has nothing to do with their ability to perform. However, at times it has everything to do with their ability to perform, because if they're not allowed to love the person they love, then they can't be the person as to who they are and perform on the highest level. So if we can eliminate homophobia in sport, we're going to get the best athlete to come out, no pun intended, to come out and play at the highest level that they can. And the great thing is that teammates are it's starting to be a non-issue with their teammates. Can you play the sport? Are you a good teammate? Are you a good citizen? That's all that matters. Let's win. So that's very refreshing to see. We have a long way to go in this area. Unfortunately, negative recruiting is still very strong from the standpoint of homophobia. I think it is important for athletes to come out if they feel comfortable doing that, because again, putting a name and a face to greatness and to the fact that it doesn't matter who you love, that you can be a great athlete. So Abby Wambach coming out and marrying her partner in Hawaii, I think says a lot for women's soccer. And you know, she's eventually going to be the best soccer player ever. She's getting close to catching Mia Hamm in all categories. So, you know, I really think that means a lot as far as role models for some of our youth. And I hope that one day it really is a non-issue. Can you play the sport, do it well, be who you are? I often tell coaches there's no I in team. I'm sorry. Coaches often say there's no I in team. But I tell coaches I's make up a team. And if that individual I can't thrive and improve and be who they are, then the whole team concept can't excel. So that's the focus that needs to be taken.
When it comes to homophobia in professional sports, are we talking about management? Are we talking about fellow players? And in the university setting, you're saying that the fellow teammates are coming along, but when it comes to homophobia, are we talking about the administration? Where are we off track here?
Yeah, I think what lags behind is image. People are so worried about an image of a team or an image, you know, so do they wear makeup? Do they wear bows in their hair? Do they have long blonde hair? So they're looking at the image of that. And even Rutgers University faced that with their tattoos one year as far as an image issue. And that's, I think, a lot of fear from an administrative standpoint, what image is being displayed and what they feel is a proper image. In administration, in the pro levels, there's some out executives. So you're seeing more and more along the lines. Lindsay, in my book, as far as an athletic trainer with the San Francisco 49ers. So we're everywhere, is the bottom line. Can we do our job? Can we do it well? Again, that's all that matters. But you've got the other side of the administrators and the fear, which that's the definition of homophobia, fear. And if you've got this fear of how this image is being displayed and the fear that it can affect the product or affect victories or affect recruiting, then that's what keeps it alive. And unfortunately, that exists, but the bright news is that I think it's slowly wearing away. The University of Oregon, if you YouTube the University of Oregon student athletes and In the Closet, they put together a YouTube video, and this was a student-athlete organization, about athletes playing in the closet and their inability to perform on a high level. And it's very powerful, and coming from the student-athlete itself, I think it's very impactful.
Throughout your book, you share with us posts, emails. Years ago, they would have been probably diary entries.
Mm-hmm.
They're wonderful.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you might have left out that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think they give a great snapshot of the ride itself. I'm not sure they really demonstrate what it took to prepare for the ride. I tried to show that in other chapters in the book, but I think the mental preparedness, not only to get ready for the ride, but to handle the ride itself, averaging 120 miles a day in sometimes extreme weather conditions or road surface conditions or wind, it really takes a mental toll on you. And to be able to fight through that when you have to, the mind is so much more powerful than we give it credit for. And it can actually excel the body into things you didn't know the body could do. So to really be able to train my mind prior to this ride so that was at its peak performance level, just as my conditioning, I knew I could get over some of these obstacles. And I'm not sure that came out truly in the diary. I hope it came out in another chapter, but again, I think that's the emphasis. It was really preparing my mind for what I needed to do for this ride.
Talk to us about your co-author, Debbie Schreiber.
Mm-hmm. Well, she believed in me. She is actually the person that said, I have a book in you, or that you have a book in you. And for her to believe that I could bring this out, she had the confidence in me, she had the connections with the UT Press to make it into something real. And then I think her endorsement solidified UT Press in the fact that this could be done, because it's a different book than what they usually publish. They're an academic press, and this is more of a trade book. But they believed in Debbie, they believed in me. And I think that was huge, because there were times where I was trying to write and saying, what the heck am I doing? I am not a writer by trade, I'm an athletic trainer, so, but she really believed in the passion, and she found a way to pull that passion out of me, and I think that was very important.
As you travel around the country, you're sort of like an ambassador. What are people saying in Tuscaloosa, Wickenburg, Costa Mesa, California?
Well, I think that it's on the move. I really believe, my opinion of people, I assume all people are good until proven otherwise. And my definition of people is there are good people and there are bad people. And again, all people are good until proven otherwise. And I believe people believe other people are good as well, no matter who they are, what they believe, who they choose to love or believe in. And so I'm seeing that as a change as we go about the country. And one of the reasons I'm speaking out so loudly, not only in what I'm saying, but also in the legal action that I'm taking, is that I want to see an equal opportunity for all people in athletics and everywhere, regardless of gender or the gender they work with, and regardless of who they are or who they choose to love or what they believe. It's all about equality. And that's an alienable right of this country. It's what makes this country so great, and I firmly believe everybody in this country believes that. And the good news is the polls are starting to show it.
There's not a lot of people who have the bravery to do that in the position you're in,
Mm-hmm.
or in the position you had. Why you?
Why not me? And I think part of that is because I feel I'm principled. I've seen what women can accomplish. I've seen the greatness that they provide, and we need to continue that. We need to strive for that. Title IX was enacted 40 years ago. It has helped us make tremendous strides. However, we are not there yet. We don't have the media coverage that we deserve. We don't have the equality in salaries. We still make 77 cents to the dollar that men make. We don't get the high-powered administrative positions, yet we are talented, skilled, qualified, and need it, deserve it, and want it. So we need that opportunity. And if we don't have role models in those positions, then the young women and girls that come after us don't know that that can be achieved. So we need to be given that opportunity. And so I'm speaking for all the young women who follow me.
As we sit here today, last week the U.S. Senate voted on ENDA, and they approved the Employers' Non-Discrimination Act. Now, although it probably will die or may die in the House, at least some expect it to, where are we? Are we where we should be? Are we in step with where we naturally should be, or are we woefully behind?
Obviously, I think we're behind. However, I think the wave is coming, and we can't stop the wave. I firmly believe it's now becoming, in politics, an issue that they're going to stop arguing about and just accept. I think you've got Illinois passing marriage equality as a 15th state. So again, the wave is coming. When it's looking at people's individual rights, equality, opportunity, access, these are the things that the average American believes every American should have. So if Washington, D.C. isn't going to get it right, the states will eventually push Washington, D.C. to do that, or vice versa. And I believe the courts are already there. So the more this can happen in the positive light that it has been happening, even if it's a step forward with a minor step back and then 2 more steps forward, we will get there. And I'm just thankful that I firmly believe it will be in my lifetime.
How do we go on from here? Where do we take this fight? How do we proceed in our area, in Tennessee? What's going to change minds?
I think changing minds is one person at a time. We have 3 powers as individuals. One is with the pen or the voice, so it's getting out there and talking to individuals, writing letters, writing your legislature and Congress, your representatives, writing letters to the editor. The next is the power of your dollar, where you choose to spend your money. So supporting industries and companies that support equal rights, and then not supporting the ones who do not. And then the third is the power of your vote, and getting those legislators out of office who do not align with your goals and values. So I think if we really focus on those powers that we have, and then starting a dialogue and a conversation with your neighbor, with your coworker, with anybody who will listen, and obviously a respectful dialogue, but get people to understand and really hear what's passionate about what's equal for an individual or someone you love, because it may not affect you directly, but it probably affects someone you know.
That will entail voting, which we can't seem to convince people is important enough to do.
Yeah, that's kind of a scratch my head issue. I wish people would come out and vote. I think part of it is the system that deters people from doing that. I think part of it is the culture that people are fed up with Washington and fed up with the arguing and the lack of bipartisanship. And I think a lot of it is the bombarding in the media. People get a little fed up with campaigns as they last for years and years, and the amount of money, the exorbitant amount of money that is spent in those campaigns and the negative ads. But I think they need to understand how important and what a privilege the vote is. It was only recently that subsects of our population even had that right to do so. And I think it needs to be cherished and exercised, because we haven't had that right for that long. So we need to make sure that that's a valuable point of how we state what we feel.
How do we communicate to those individuals in public office that are staunchly against equality. Is there a conversation that can happen?
I think if it can't be a conversation with them, it needs to be a conversation with people around them. So there are other constituents, because again, there's powers in numbers. So I think we still need to voice our opinion with them directly, whether it's through a phone call, whether it's through a letter to the editor that makes it a little bit more public. But we need, again, to talk to our neighbors, our coworkers, everybody in their district to say, you know, if they're not following what is the right thing to do, maybe they'll pay attention when the votes turn the other way.
Tennessee. Governor Haslam seems to be very reticent to recognize the need in the state for such legislation.
Yes, and that's extremely disappointing. But there are cities such as Knoxville, hopefully soon Chattanooga, and Nashville at one point in time that feel that different than he does. And I believe that they are looking from the industry standpoint, from capitalization, and the fact that if you want to recruit the best, the talented, and have industry come to the great state of Tennessee, you need to treat everybody equally.
I want to thank you very much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure being here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let's keep the conversation going.